Hey VC, what's up? It's me, yours truly. I am back to post a quick video response to Stephievons' last thread. She had a really good one-question thread, which basically was how do you find comfort in music, or how do you find comfort musically? And again, really good question. After I kind of put a lot of time into thinking about it, it was one of those, get the wheels turning and kind of give you some insight on yourself. And so, I was trying to think about, certain albums or groups or whatever the case may be. And the harder I try, I just start to realize more and more there's not really one album or group that I usually actually turn to for comfort. And so again, I started kind of thinking about it more and more, and it kind of tied into, at least the answer for myself kind of tied into, I think, the same reason why music is so important to me and why it's has been so influential in my life. And it was kind of like, well, it's really hard to say where do you turn to for comfort as far as specific bands or whatever, because each album or each piece in my collection, it's kind of like a friendship you develop. It's almost like a person that you have in your life. Some people you meet in your life and you become really best friends, and you are best friends forever. Some you're really good friends with for a short period of time, but then maybe you only talk to them once a year after that. Others are the friend that you think is kind of cool, but you really can't stand, so you don't hang around them as much. Have some flaws, and just kind of on and on and on. I kind of just got that sense of like, that really is what it's about, is that all your albums is like having different friendships at different points in time. So at certain points within friendships or relationships, there might be a peak emotional connection, and at other points it might not be quite as strong. Anyway, so without getting all the way into all that stuff, that's kind of, I guess, the same way I look at my music, and that's kind of the same way that I use music to kind of deal with some of the the tough things that you deal with in life. And it's just kind of what I actually look for when I'm dealing with hard or rough patches in life, is there's usually a certain emotion that I'm looking for. An emotion to dominate the negative emotion that I'm feeling, to either squash it or at least get it out of my mind for a period of time or whatever. And it really kind of changes over the course of time in terms of what that is. I can think about certain albums that maybe used to give me such relief in terms of emotional relief, but then maybe something negative happened in my lifetime when I was really into that album. So now sometimes when I play that album, it makes me start to think about that big negative thing that happened during the time that I was really getting into that album or that band. And so maybe now it's not quite the relief that it was before, or something like that. So you have albums and artists that kind of go through those type of phases and everything. So yeah, I guess really the way I use music to kind of comfort myself is whichever one of my friends is really giving me the most love and the best connected relationship at that moment. That's kind of where I turn to for my comfort level in terms of that friend being, music or certain albums. I guess maybe one thing that I can say is somewhat consistent with me turning to music for comfort is looking at the genre of metal music. On a pretty regular basis over the course of time, that has been a pretty consistent piece of my collection or my musical taste that has always really kind of been there for me during rough times. And I think really kind of a good way to sum up why is, I was watching a Headbanger's Journey, or maybe it was one of the other things he's doing right now, but anyway, he interviewed this guy that was basically talking about, you remember when Judas Priest was being, sued or taken to court because they were saying there were subliminal messages that caused those 2 kids to commit suicide, and on and on and on. And he was kind of talking about, he's kind of doing it in a nice way, but he's basically saying how ridiculous that was. And what his point was that, you know, suicide oftentimes has a, I mean, there's a lot of different factors, but oftentimes has a correlation with feelings of helplessness. And what he was saying was, you know, that is one thing that's not associated with metal music, is the feeling of helplessness. This is not a very direct correlation. You know, typically if you're really listening to and getting into a good metal album, and you got, you know, these guitar riffs and these, you know, palm muted chugs just pounding you, and the double bass drums hitting and everything else, that's typically not something that puts you in a position of feeling helpless. Because, again, in general, it's a very, very intense, energizing music that I think a lot of people that feel helpless and feel disenfranchised and everything else, they turn to it because of that. That's not the cause of that. In a lot of cases, kind of the savior of a lot of people from that. It saves them from it. But anyway, speaking from my own experience, I know the time when I really, really started to get into metal music was when I went through one of those very, very rough patches in my life. And metal was the music that just gave me the energy. I mean, it gave me the, I don't know, it gave me the strength I needed to fight the negative feelings I was dealing with all the stuff that was going on in my life at the time. So that's probably the most consistent thing that I utilize musically to help me get through a lot of rough patches, is to feel like, to re-energize myself with power. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. It's an emotion of power. And I think that's a big part of why I don't get caught up too much in all the stuff that bands necessarily try to portray. I mean, you know, because there's always this association of evil with metal and, you know, Satanism and all this type of stuff. And bands can say some crazy stuff, and they can, you know, try to put all this different type of stuff out there, but it doesn't really, I don't get caught up in that stuff. They don't, you know, they don't suck me in with that stuff, because I can care less about how bad you're trying to look, so much as there's an energy behind what you're doing, and I'm just absorbing that energy, and I want to take that energy in and interpret it the way that I want to interpret it, which will always be something positive. I would never take any negative meaning from any type of music, and if I can't control that, I don't listen to it. So anyway, that is, again, getting off point, but like I said, Steph, you got me thinking, so the wheels are turning. But anyway, very, very good question. Thanks, BC, for watching as always, and of course, let me know if you guys have any questions. This weekend, probably not tomorrow, but probably on Saturday, I've been jotting down some of the requests that you guys have been sending over, so I'm going to do a few request videos this weekend and share some of the things that you guys have been asking about. Alright, take care, BC, and we will talk to you soon.